Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a brand new and beautiful day. It's a gorgeous, sunny, almost kind of cool day here in the Enchanted Forest. It's spectacular. It's a great day to be alive and to do something new or to keep on keeping on, whatever it is that you choose to do, or maybe a little bit of both. Good morning, Carla Jo. It's great to have you in the chat room. I hope everyone can hear me okay today. There were a couple of audio difficulties yesterday with volume, so I hope that has been corrected. Good morning, Angie Town. It's good to see you in the chat room this morning. Yeah, last week we had a conversation about the cost of, not being who we are or being who we really aren't. So today we're going to talk about flipping that around and being courageously, boldly authentic. And I think it's a great topic anytime, really. Sometimes we just need reminders, don't we, about how good it is to be. Just to be us. Good morning, Rob. It's good to see everybody. The chat room is open for those of you that are listening right now and wondering how I can see some people's names. Well, they're in the chat room with me, and you are certainly invited to come on in and join in the discussion today. We're talking about being boldly, courageously authentic. And while that sounds glamorous and it sounds easy, it isn't always easy. And it's certainly not always glamorous. The cost of not being authentic sometimes is a cost that we feel within our heart, within our mind, within our emotions. Sometimes it's a cost that simply makes us unhappy, wondering why we're here. All kinds of things happen when we're just being who we're not supposed to be, or who we believe other people would like us to be. And even in that, we're shortchanging ourselves. So what about just being who we are in all of it? The glamorous parts, the muddy parts, the sloppy parts, right? The unhealed parts, the unsure parts. What about bringing all of those to the table? Well, sometimes in bringing those to the table, we can feel vulnerable. So vulnerability is also part of being authentic. Authenticity means, at least to me, that we bring all of ourselves to the table. All of those parts that we know to be who we are. And sometimes we don't really even know who we are, do we? Until we begin peeling away the layers of perhaps who we were told or who we were expected to be, who we are expected to be. Peeling away those layers until we come to find out, wow, this is really who I am. And I think that there's sometimes some trepidation in really admitting who we are. Being okay with who we are. Because in being okay with who we are, then what happens when others aren't okay with who we have discovered ourselves to be? Then what? Well, that requires change. Being authentic sometimes requires change, and not easy change. I think about some of my friends who, in their older years, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that have discovered their sexuality isn't what they always assumed it was. It isn't what they were expected to be. And to watch them walk through the doorway of what now? If I'm going to be authentic to who I am in my sexuality, what does that mean? What change will that require? Changes in friends, maybe changes in social status, right? Changes in the way that we look at ourselves, the way people perceive us, groups of friends, right? Does that mean new friends? Does that mean the old friends go away? So many questions. But I do believe, and I've believed this for a very long time, at least for myself, that when we are authentic, that means that Yes, Gabriel and Dominic are hooting it up in here. Gabriel, that's enough, buddy. Dominic's having fun with his mice out in the hallway. Good morning, Katie Battle. That the people who love us, that 20% in our lives, 20% of the people that we know are never going to like us, and we need to get used to that. Cheryl Richardson is right. 20% of the people in our lives that we know are not going to like us. Maybe it's more than that, I don't know, but I kind of like 20%. 20% of the people will never like us no matter what we do, how we do it, and yet typically those are the 20% we seem to focus on, particularly in our younger years, making people love us, making people like us, thinking that we're going to do that for that 20%. 60% of the people that we know really don't care one way or the other. They're not affected by our life one way or the other, and they may have a little bit of an opinion about us or a thought, but it really doesn't matter to them which way we go in our lives. And then there's the 20%, the other 20%, that are going to love us no matter what. And those are the people I think that we need to focus on when we're talking about being boldly, bravely, courageously authentic, because I also happen to believe that 20% that loves us no matter what already knows who we are and is waiting for more of that. You ever have that conversation with a good friend and they say, well, I was waiting when you were going to get to that. I knew that about you a long, long time ago. You're not telling me anything I didn't know. Well, why didn't you say something? Well, I don't know. It's just who you are. You ever have that conversation? I've had that conversation with many a friend, and particularly with my few really good friends. Right? Well, I knew that all along about you. Being courageous in being authentic means that you probably are going to raise some eyebrows. And you'll probably be fodder for gossip. Okay. Well, gossip, that moccasin hotline, as my sisters call it, is a very fleeting thing. One moment we're the headline, and the next moment somebody else has taken the place in the headline of the news of the day or the news of the week. The problem is we can get stuck in that headline because the headline was about us, while everybody else has moved along. We can no longer be the focus of, oh my goodness, did you see what Dana is doing now? Can you believe that? What is the matter with her? Is she crazy? What is going on with her? That lasts about 5 minutes in the universal timing of all things. And I realize that. I'm not going to sit in that headline. Look what Dana has done now. Look what she's up to now. That's fleeting. So when we're being boldly courageous, sometimes we have to realize that, we'll be the headline at tables of gossip or eyebrow raising, and it's very fleeting. And for those people that ruminate on it, well, they're the 20% that aren't going to like you anyway, so let's take them right away from the table. The 20% that love you are going to say, holy smokes, we were waiting. We were waiting for that. And the other 60% might participate in the gossip or the headline reading, but pretty soon it's just old news and they're on to the next thing, right? Right? If headlines about gun control here in the United States can be fleeting after 40, 50, 60 people are mowed down in one foul swoop, really, us as a headline is even more fleeting. Think about it that way, if that helps. Good morning, Marianne. Hey, Margaret Spooner. Nikki. Ever since I heard you say that years ago about the 20-20-60, it's brought me so far in my life. Thank you. You're welcome, Nikki. That's right. That's right. 20-20-60. So let's focus on the 20% that love you. The 20% that want you to succeed. Sometimes it always kind of befuddles me. And Carla Jo, you and I have had this conversation. Nikki, so have you. You and I have also had this conversation. I love nothing more than to see other people succeed. I love that. Absolutely love that. And if I can be a facilitator of taking somebody out of their comfort zone and into the next in their life, making them shine, being more authentic to who they are, I love that. Anyone who knows me knows how much joy it brings to me to place the spotlight on other people. And conversely, I've had people say, well, why would you give your space and time over for somebody else to shine? Why would you do that? That always makes me, wow. And no, those are not close friends of mine that would ever even ask something like that. Sometimes in giving somebody the spotlight, it can be uncomfortable for them for, about 5 minutes or, 5 months or maybe a year. It's uncomfortable. But to watch somebody unfold into the authentic being that they are as a teacher, as an artist, as a speaker, as a healer, whatever that happens to be, as a writer, all of the above, that is magnificent. Giving somebody their wings, I think is another way to say that. I really do feel that the more authentic each and every one of us is, the ripple effect of that is absolutely magnificent. It is magnificent. In a world full of people wearing masks, trudging around really not even knowing who they are, but being who they're supposed to be, makes for a lot of chaos and confusion, I believe, in the weave, as Amantha Murphy calls it. I do believe that each and every one of us came here for a purpose, to shine uniquely. And a lot of people don't do that until the end of their life, and sometimes they never do it. And that's really sad. For me, that's really sad. Carla Jo is saying, you have helped me expand my comfort zone enormously over the years. Yes, and now look. Isn't that marvelous to see really who somebody is when it blooms, when it comes to fruition, and it keeps going? Being authentic. Have you ever heard somebody say this, though? Here's my little caveat to authentic. I am who I am. I'm not going to change. And if you don't like it, you can leave. Or as we said in the 70s, you can lump it. If you don't like it, you can lump it, right? Well, if we're going to be authentic and we're going to say that, if we're going to put that forth, I am who I am, and if you don't like it, lump it, you can leave. You may find yourself alone in a room. Because being authentic also means that there's growth involved. Self-awareness is involved. I have a daughter who is a Virgo Leo, who helps me with this. She is quite a little ferocious sounding board for the universe. Mom, did you see what you did right there? What are you talking about, Elise? When I mentioned that person's name, did you see the look on your face? Well, you couldn't see the look on your face because I'm the one looking at your face. Your face tells a lot of stuff, Mom. And so sometimes, Mom, you just need to maybe dial that back a little bit. If somebody else loves that person and maybe you don't, Mom, you just need to be aware that sometimes your face says what your mouth isn't going to say. And I love you, but I just wanted you to know that, Mom. Self-awareness. And I'm really aware of that now because every time that person's name comes up, I remain in a neutral face pose. Right? This was a conversation like a year ago. Oh, well, thank you for making me aware of that, Elise. And so I've become more consciously aware. Being boldly, courageously us means we also have to be conscious of who we are and what we're bringing to the table. If we are repeatedly the only person at our table because we're just being authentic, well, we need to look at all parts of our authenticity. If my Scorpio-ness sometimes shows a little bit too much on my face, even if it isn't passing through my lips, being consciously aware of that right? Helps me to be more authentic in, sometimes we just have to have some manners. Sometimes we need to know how to go into neutral. It means growth, being aware, being awake. I learned a long time ago that being authentic meant that there would be people who would meet me or hear about me and their eyebrows would raise, or they might have some questions, they may investigate, whatever that happens to be, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. So being bold means that we also sometimes have to have a little bit of thick skin, that people are going to talk, they may walk away, or we may have to walk away. We may have to walk away. But those people who say, you know what, if you don't like me, then you know what, this is just how I am. Well, they've made a statement, they've made a declaration. And that declaration is, I am not willing to change. I am not willing to look at another perspective, perhaps in any given situation. And therefore, here I am. And as my dad, the Sarge, always said, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. Believe them. If somebody shows you who they are, believe them. If they are being authentic and that's who they are, believe that. And you have a choice then to make. The same thing is true about us when we're being authentic. I think that it's not always easy to bring the best parts of our authenticity. Sometimes, that Scorpio face shows up unaware. I was not aware that I was quite that prolific or obvious in my emoting through my facial expressions, but my daughter brought it to me. Living in this world means that I also have to get along in situations. And so knowing what it was that she needed to share with me has made me conscious of how I present myself in my authenticity. And frankly, I don't always want to go around if I hear someone's opinion or thought, having the look, she called it. Mom, there's the look. That's the look. Well, what's the look like? And she mirrored it back at me. It was not pretty. So I learned how to go into neutral, because sometimes you just have to be in neutral. You can still be authentic to yourself, but learn a little bit of neutrality. Being authentic means that our authenticity also changes, it grows, it morphs. Not everybody is ready for that, everybody. Not everybody is ready for that. Nikki's laughing. Giving is rewarding in a way that receiving is not. Absolutely, Marianne. Yes, I agree with you. It gives me a sense of fullness that lasts far longer. Yes, being a giver. I agree. Being authentic to that. You know how many times I've heard people say, I don't even know why. Why is she supporting Native American children out in South Dakota? There are children right here in Michigan that need her help. What is she doing helping people out there? Well, the fact is I help children in Michigan, here in West Michigan, South Dakota, and all across the country. I may not talk about it. It may not be publicized on Facebook or any social media, but it always astounds me that even in the work of being authentic, where my heart was drawn first, there's criticism. Being authentic means that we're going to be up for criticism, everybody. And the art of being up for criticism means that we need to understand that who we are matters, that our passion, our love, our avocation matters. It may not matter to the people right in my neighborhood, but it does matter to the children in South Dakota on the reservation. It does matter to the children in West Michigan, in Minnesota, on the East Coast, down south, wherever it is that the foundation is helping. It does matter there too. And as Marianne is saying, it matters in my heart. Criticism sometimes can pull us away from being authentic. I say, don't let it. If at the end of the day, you can look in the mirror and say, I did something good today. Maybe you did something good for yourself. Maybe you did something good for your land, for your critters. Maybe you did something good in the grocery store for another person. You can look in the mirror and say, I was me today and I did something. I was something authentically me today. I bought a book that's authentically me. I participated in something today that was authentically me. I did it. And I don't care what other people happen to think about the fact that I went to a gathering of, right? Fill in the blank. Yeah. We go where we are drawn. Absolutely, Carla Jo. Where our heart and soul is drawn. I mean, even my own family in the past has criticized me. Boy, talk about something that can be really hurtful, isn't it? When our own family criticizes being authentic to who we are, that can be painful. It can be excruciating. And excusing ourselves from that is not easy. And maintaining that distance isn't easy either. Is it good for the soul? Absolutely. Is it good for our authenticity? You bet it is. I was thinking about this show yesterday. I was outdoors, and I thought to myself, when we talk about being authentic, as Charmaine said to me, how many people have you lost in your life because you've remained true to your path? Well, we need to be prepared for loss when we are authentic. It doesn't have to be major loss. Sometimes it is. For me, it has been. And I thought to myself, Dana, when you're talking about being authentic, what or who has been the most hurtful? And unequivocally, I can say family. Not my family of origin. Not my biological family. Family has been the most painful. Family has brought me to my knees. And sometimes we stay there for a minute when we're being authentic to ourselves, and then we get up, right? We muster up again. And the great news about that is when we walk away or we're pushed away, right? Pushed outside of the circle for being authentic, there's a beautiful thing that happens in the grace of being alive. And that is that those people who love us in our authenticity step it up. They appear. They find us. We find them. The universe brings them to us. That's the grace of being authentic. I love the words, where have you been all my life? Right? Where have you been all my life? I'm so thankful that you happened into my life. I'm so thankful that you're willing to be you. Aren't those wonderful words? I'm going to say that to each and every one of you today. Thank you for being you. Thank you for showing up for your life. Thank you for being authentic. Thank you for being willing to do your healing work. Right? In our healing work, the beautiful thing about, taking a look at such things as the Scorpio face and, where does that come from? Why does that happen? And what provokes that to happen? We have to take a look on the inside. We have to take a look at memories. We have to take a look at where we've been to understand where we are now. And sometimes that requires a bit of healing, requires a bit of readjustment, maybe some new thinking. Being authentic is so liberating. For me, it's liberating. As anyone who knows Todd and I, he is a corporate executive. He's out in corporate meetings along the East Coast all week, so he's a suit and tie guy. And in me being authentic, He gets to answer the question of coworkers or his employees. So what does your wife do? What does your wife do for a living? She's a what? She does, oh. oh. He'll say, well, go look at her website. Here's her website. He hands out more business cards than anybody. I actually have clients out on the East Coast, up in the Boston area of the world, because of Todd. Your wife does what? She's who? He said, well, you are who you are. I'm so glad my husband is one of the 20%. And I love it when I get a phone call from somebody who said, yeah, I know your husband, Todd. Oh, nice. Right? Sometimes other people can be a little flabbergasted by explaining who we are, what we do. Being authentic makes our life so rich because you want to know why? We are all magnetic. We are magnetic beings. Therefore, if we are walking around with a mask, the magnet says we are going to attract others who are wearing the mask. When we take the mask off, when we reveal ourselves, let's just say, the magnetism changes. The magnetism says, here's who I am. Let's see what the universe brings to me based on that resonance. For me, what I've noticed in my life, people will say, to me, Dana, you have so many adventures in your life. You have so many adventurous people in your life. How do you do that? It's not what I do. It's what I am. It's being. I do have amazingly adventurous people in my life. And adventurous doesn't mean that they swashbuckle around the world with me. Sometimes they're just adventurous right where they live. They're just adventurous souls. They're learning, they're becoming, they're expanding, they delve into, they're inquisitive. That's also adventurous. And some of my friends, they also go swashbuckling with me in an effort to do all of the above. I love that about my life. When Todd and I first married 8 years ago, has it been 8 years? 9 years ago. I said to him, well, I hope that you're ready for adventure and adventurous people. And he said, well, that's what I love most about you, are the people in your life, the adventures in your life. I'm ready for that. I'm open to that. He and I can't even count on all of our fingers and all of our toes put together how many adventures, swashbuckling adventures we have had in 8 years, 7 years, almost 8 years that we've been together. Right? That's the grace and that's the magnetism. And if adventure is not your gig, whatever your gig is, when you are authentic, that is what you are going to attract into your life. Those are the people. Those are the people. Hey, Pam Miller. Good morning. Family of choice is always there for you. That's right, Carla Jo. Yes, family of blood can be so hard when you are not what they find acceptable. Yes, that is particularly difficult. Particularly difficult. Rob is saying, set your course for adventure, your heart on a new romance. Yes. Yes. Trying to be who we are not does not work. When somebody says to me, oh, I just need to find Mr. Right or Miss Right, I just need to find that person and I'm doing everything that I think is right, here's what I say. How about just being you? How about just being you? When you are authentically you and not trying to squeeze into that outfit that you think is going to work, into that persona you think is going to snag. That's what they call it on the res. Snagging, right? Mr. Right or Miss Right. Just be you. Well, how did you meet Todd? Well, good Lord, I was walking through the grocery store. I was at Meyer Thrifty Acre in Rockford, going down the paper product aisle with not an ounce of makeup, a nasty old winter coat, slogging around looking for paper napkins. That was the romance. The spark of romance happened right there, with my hair up in a bun. And I hear, Denise, is that you? Oh, Lord. Yep, it's me. Hey, Todd, how are ya? Right? Just being me in the grocery store. All of me. No makeup even. Not even a little bit of mascara. In fact, I don't even believe I had on any lipstick or lip gloss. And anybody who knows me knows how I am about lipstick and lip gloss. All right, that's my thing. In the 70s, yes, I was one of those girls that had that big old Bonnie Bell, remember, lip gloss in the back pocket of my Levi's? Yeah, that was me. Bigger the better. So being authentic. You are going to attract. Not only are you going to attract a resonance that resonates with you, you're also going to attract that which will help you grow. That which will help you grow. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be hunky-dory when we're perfectly authentic. What it means is that we're liberated from the confines of other people's expectations, our own expectations, false expectations. Hey, Johnny. See, my cousin Johnny's in the chat room, right? So she has seen me not only in my nightgown with no makeup, she's seen me there in my bathing suit swimming around, right? Well, a lot of people have seen me in my bathing suit because, if you're going to go swimming, you're going to be in a bathing suit. But she has seen me at my glamorous and my, let's just say, not so glamorous, but me being me. And she loves me no matter what, right? The other part of that moment of grace when we say, you know what, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to do me while everybody else does them. And I'm going to grow me and I'm going to prosper me. And I'm going to see what it feels like to be me. I'm going to study mysticism. I'm going to study Coptic Christian magic, right? I have that book sitting there looking at me. Ancient Christian magic. Yes, believe it or not, that does exist out of the Coptic language. That's a whole other course in and of itself, isn't it? I'm going to study those things. I'm going to go to Sundance. I'm going to give flesh offerings. I'm going to do Hamblecha Vision Quest. I'm going to do all of this because I'm going to live life. And I'm going to live it in the most juicy, passionate, authentic way that I can, getting down and dirty sometimes. Well, then, and sometimes, I like to go to the theater. I have those moments. But whatever I do, I'm going to do it authentically me and see what happens. Just see what happens. A lot of cool things happen when you break out of the relationship that really is not feeding or nurturing your authenticity. When you break out of the job, right? The group, the whatever that is, that's holding you back. Sometimes we begin the process, don't we? Just on weekends. We begin the weekend warrior, right? Authenticity project. Well, on the weekends, I'm kicking off those pumps and I'm taking off that jacket and I am putting on my Stevie Nicks flowy stuff. And I'm going to be authentic on the weekends. Well, then pretty soon it creeps into the work day a little bit to the degree that it can, and you stay employed, right? For me, it crept right on into who I was at the newspaper for 33 years. And here's the beauty of it. When I started writing books in 2004, after a couple of decades in the newspaper industry, I had my own magnificent editorial board who helped me launch my first publishing company. who helped me write and publish my first books. Dee, you don't need a publishing company. You work for a publishing house. Make your own publishing company. Here we are to help you. Let's do it that way. Why would you go to somebody else when you have all of us right here? Well, all of you are helping me to write books on mysticism and spirituality. Well, yeah, because it's all about you being authentic to you, Dee. So here we are. We know who you are over here in the newsroom. Just because you work on Executive Row doesn't mean we don't know who you are. How marvelous is that? Pretty doggone marvelous. So it creeps into the workplace sometimes. And maybe it just becomes at some point who you are completely and fully. And it feels great. Pam, I'm going to keep working on my weird fiction book because I'm going to live juicy. I love that. That's right. Live juicy. Live passionate. Live passionate. And passion doesn't have to be loud, by the way. Some people are passionate. Some people are adventurous very quietly. Very quietly. Maybe adventure to some person is not the same as adventure to me. I'm not saying that everybody in the universe is going to want to go to Sundance with me. Not everybody is going to stand in line to give flesh offerings off of their arms. Not everybody's going to want to do that. Some people may. Some people are aghast that I do that. And that's okay. They still love me. I remember the first time I met Jan Beaver. We were at Arval Looking Horse's place there on the Cheyenne River Reservation. Jan is First Nations elder Anishinaabe from Canada. Love her. And we actually met in the kitchen, right? The cook shack, as they call it, at the Sundance. And she and I were slapping together some fry bread. And there we're frying fry bread. And it came time for the flesh offering. So, which is a time at the Sundance where we give of our own flesh for the strength, to give strength to the dancers. She said, oh, it's that time. And she said, I said, well, I'm going to go and do that. And she said, oh, well, I'll go support you in that. So she sat in the arbor. I'll never forget it. She was dressed so beautifully that day in lovely white linen. And I went over, and the man who took my flesh offerings that day was quite, how do I want to say it, lively, zestful, maybe, in taking the flesh. So by the time I got back around the arbor and to her, there was a bit of blood flowage coming down my arm and out of the cup in my hand that I had made for her. And she looked at me and she nearly fainted. She nearly fainted. And she got all pale in the face and she got woozy and she said, you just need to cover that up. I don't even know how you just did that. And I don't even, what, why? Right? And so we talked about it. First, I patched myself up with some sage. I packed all those holes in my arm with some sage. And then she and I talked about that. And she loves me, and we talked about that. And we agreed that that probably wasn't for her. But there she was doing what she does at the Sundance, right? Cooking and being a supporter on the sidelines. So everybody experiences adventure and juiciness in their own way. I think the great part is when we can respect one another in the way that we experience it. I mean, if people aren't being harmed, and I wasn't being harmed in that moment, I gladly gave of my flesh in that moment and then patched myself up, right? But to disagree sometimes, right? Being boldly authentic means that we get to be authentic. Not everybody is going to agree. Isn't it wonderful when we can agree to disagree? Or we can be civil in our disagreement, when we can actually have a conversation. To take a look at another person's viewpoint or side while they're being authentic. I love when we can agree to disagree. My daughter and I do that quite often. We just agree that we're going to disagree. And that's okay. We disagree on politics, right? Sometimes we have to be very quiet in our authenticity, when it comes to things like politics. Do I give to political campaigns? Absolutely, I do. Right out of my pocket and into their coffers. Do I talk about it on Facebook? No, I don't. For a variety of reasons, one of them being that I am a president of a nonprofit foundation, and therefore I keep my politics to myself. It's not that I don't have an opinion, I don't have a thought, I'm not passionate about politics, I am. But not at the risk of losing my 501c3 designation. But I do participate in all of it, in the privacy of my own home and in my own world. Do Todd and I always give to the same coffers? No. And he and I will talk about why he gives to one coffer and I give to another. We have great discussions. Great discussions. I love to be glued to the political debates, Republican, Democratic, all of it. Because I love to see people being authentic, or at least trying to be authentic. Right? And in my authenticity, I find some education in that. Being quiet about my authenticity in politics is necessary for a greater good in my life, and that is Gathering Thunder Foundation. And it's not that I'm probably going to agree with all of my relatives or all of my friends, and that's okay. But taking the time to listen to another person's authenticity, I love that. I love that. I remember sitting in the airport in Cairo, Egypt. I'm a very inquisitive person. Very inquisitive person, as you all know. And I was sitting next to this woman in a full galabeya, or I guess probably would call it a burqa because her face was covered. But what I noticed underneath her burqa were some bright red, I kid you not, Prada, yes, Prada, pumps. They were like stilettos. These things were, wow. So there she is, covered from head to toe, with these babies poking out from underneath. Well, I couldn't help myself. I just could not help myself. And so she and I were sitting next to one another in the airport, and here's how I began the conversation. Wow, those are some amazing shoes you've got on. Wow. She said, thank you. I said, those are really something. I said, is there like a matching outfit underneath your burqa? And she started to chuckle. And she said, actually, there is. I said, really? So do you shop in Cairo? And we began this conversation about what she was wearing underneath her burqa. The matching Prada suit or whatever it was at that time to match those amazing stiletto pumps. And we talked about then why she was wearing that burqa. Only days earlier, I had refused to put one on in a mosque, which caused a little bit of a stink, let's just say. And here she was wearing one. So I was then being educated. Now, I myself, just a few days earlier, was not going to wear one. In a mosque full of 1,000 people, why I was chosen out of a lineup of all of those people and told to put on a burqa, I didn't know and I didn't like it. So I didn't do it, and I was escorted out, with a personal bodyguard out of the mosque. I was respectful. I said, I'm just not going to wear that. I would probably, had everybody else in the mosque been wearing one, but nobody else it seemed like miles around in the Muhammad Ali Mosque was wearing one. Well, anyway, having this conversation with this beautiful woman, her eyes were beautiful anyway, and so were her shoes, I came to understand a little bit more about her wearing that burqa and her religious tradition. And she wasn't abused underneath it. It wasn't any of that. It was her tradition. And I thought about my own tradition of wearing, an inipi dress inside the sweat lodge, and why I do that, and why most of the women who come into my inipi wear that inipi dress. Well, now knowing what I had known, I probably would have put on that burqa at that time. Tara, if you're listening, you were there when that whole thing happened. Tara Rietberg, you were witness to all of that. But I didn't know at the time. I became educated. I became educated in that moment. She told me a whole lot of stuff. And at the end of our conversation, Pam saying, product crosses all divides. That's right. It began a conversation. At the end, she looked at me and she said, I like you. I said, well, I like you. She said, you know, sometimes we hear things about American women that obviously aren't true. And I said, well, and sometimes we hear things about Middle Eastern women that aren't true. Thank you for your conversation today. And she said, well, thank you for your conversation. And then in Arabic, I said, chokura. Chokura, which means thank you. And, you know, I could see that she was probably smiling underneath her burqa. I could hear it in her voice. And pretty soon her husband came to get her for her flight, and off she went. I didn't let my perception of her authenticity and my authenticity prevent me from engaging in conversation and education at all. I'm prone to doing that. I'm prone to doing that. Pam is saying, what an amazing experience the universe rolled out for you. Yes, I love it when that lines up too. Yes. Love that. Education, education, education. Education. Education helps us to become more authentic, and it allows others to be more authentic. The times I've had conversations about people's misperceptions or misconceptions about being Catholic or being adopted or being this or being that, conversation, good conversation, is magnificent. It's part of the reason that I have a travel company and I travel around the world. Well, it started out being an army brat, right? So when you're an army brat, you're dragged around everywhere anyway. And you learn a lot of stuff that's pretty doggone cool. And you learn things about people. And you learn things about traditions. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Rob. Rob's talking about the Yomolka and Bar Mitzvah. Yeah, experiencing those things. I remember going to my first powwow here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Oh, the kids were little. And I remember my husband at the time, Steve, looking at me and saying to me, "You're really moved by this," right? The drums were going as the tears were running down my eyes, right, and off my cheeks. He said, "There's something about this that you need." We spent the whole day there. I asked questions of people in a good way. In a good way. Now, had that woman at the airport in Cairo said to me, or moved away from me like, "You're too nosy about my shoes," well, okay, that's fair. I've not experienced that yet, though. Most of the time I just listen, especially when I'm in the presence of elders who are always teaching us to be authentic. Because you do get to an age, really, don't we? I think for me that started at like 30. Getting really authentic and not really much caring about what people thought of my authenticity. And by the time, I was 40 and then 50, oh my goodness, here I am in the middle of my 50s. I'm just going to keep on keeping on. Something must be working. Boy, when David Sturkin and I were down in Atlanta, a few weeks back, and I walked into the hotel lounge, we went in to get a bite. I went in to get a glass of wine, and the bartender looked at me. And he said, Girl, has anybody ever told you who you look just like? And I said, Sally Field? Yep, I hear that all the time. You don't look like Sally Field. You look like Stevie Nicks. You look like a brunette version of Stevie Nicks. Cad, David said, oh my God, you just made her day. I said to him, I've reached a point of authenticity, right? That the Stevie Nicks within me is out there in my aura. And he laughed. The bartender laughed. He said, girl, you look just like her, only you got black hair and she has blonde hair. I said, it's the energy signature. I've let my inner gypsy, my inner Welsh witch come to life. But thank you, DeMarco. I appreciate that. And then I had my photo taken with him because that was a moment in my life. It was a moment in my life where somebody saw my inner Welsh witch and honored it, right? Good morning, Corey. Johnny's saying hers was at 40. Yeah. May every girl know her inner Stevie Nicks. That's right. Boy, back in the day, she was going out on a limb, being courageously authentic, declaring, right, who she was. And I have one of those top hats, by the way. I bought one at the Renaissance Fair. It's downstairs in one of my living rooms. I love it. And I keep it out because it reminds me that it's okay to let your inner Stevie Nicks shine. It's okay to dance in the kitchen, right? Who doesn't want to dance to Gold Dust Woman, right? Or The Chain, that part in The Chain where Stevie Nicks does her little... I've seen her so many times in concert. The person who does that the best, you know, that spinning around she does, is Kelly Spencer. Boy, if you have The Chain playing or Gold Dust Woman on the stereo system and Kelly Spencer is in the house, now there's somebody who's authentically her, always has been, right? Rob is saying, I was told the other day I look like Kenny Rogers. I was hoping for Gordon Lightfoot. You do look like Kenny Rogers, and you do play guitar like Gordon Lightfoot. I hope that's helpful, Rob. You're a blend. Yeah, there comes a time in our lives where we say, let's just be authentic. I'm tired of being who I am not. How many people have you heard say that in their 50s, 60s, 70s, all of a sudden life got adventurous? That's where the fun started. Some people say it's because of retirement. Well, that might be part of it. What I believe they're really saying, and maybe they don't know, is that at 50, 60, 70, 80, they really began to care less about what other people thought about them being authentic. Right? That's what I think happens. I started the process a lot earlier than some. I just did. And the magnetism of that is drawing into my life other people who are, I love the word juicy, living a juicy life, whatever that is for them. And we all get together in our juiciness and talk about it. Next Friday, a whole group of us are leaving for Ireland. Yep. Heading to the land of the ancestors, of the Tuatha, the people of the goddess Dana, right? The land of the Celts. There will be a whole lot of going on, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. People, isn't it, the first time I went to Ireland, watching members of the group get their Irish on, right? Todd won the Irish dancing contest. Of course he did. He also won the powwow 2 years in a row, right? He won male dancer. He loves to dance. The guy can, yeah. So watching my husband get his Irish on, although, as he was informed, oh, goodness, that Clan Somerville is not Irish. They're actually Scottish. But he got up there and he did it anyway. Getting their Irish on, getting our Stevie Nicks on, getting our artist on, our photographer, our passionate woman, our passionate man, our inner musician, our inner author, our inner adventure seeker, our inner beachcomber, allowing that authentic part of us to come forward. We don't need to wait until we're retired or 70 or 80, or some people just don't retire because they're just passionate about living and want to be engaged in the world. That's cool. It's all cool, isn't it? Wearing your Prada under your burqa. That's cool. Yeah. Education. Whew. I certainly will do that. I will pay my regards to the Irish ancestors. Yesterday, Cad was looking up. He had the book of coats of arms for Ireland. He said, who do you want me to look up? And I said, well, look up King Clan, because they went from being Clan MacDonald at the fall of the Clan MacDonald in Scotland to the Clan King in England and Ireland. So if you could find my MacDonald, aka the King clan in Ireland, that would be magnificent. And he did. He did. We'll be visiting that. We'll be visiting that. Stepping into the realm of ancestors. Right? Bringing that authenticity into the now. I'm having a tattoo put on. Maybe some of you saw it on Instagram. It's going to be quite a work of art. The first piece, it's my ancestral art. It's going on my back. The first piece is quite large. It's a raven. The raven is wearing a crown made of willow. That's obvious. Referral to the Clan MacDonald, aka King Clan from Scotland. The willow on her head. I'm the raven. The raven is in a nest of lilacs that represents my mother, the Clan Erfman from the Netherlands. And all around it will be the authenticity of my bloodline. So the raven eventually will be gazing through a window into the land of the ancestors. And my tattoo artist, Raven Wind, I said 2 decades ago, I said if I ever have tattoo work done, it will be done by Raven Wind in Otsego. She's also the one that works with Todd. And so the vision came to pass that I would have my ancestry literally put on my skin. I'm going to keep it as close to me as I can now, right? It's not going anywhere, the people or the ancestors. And so she will be looking through a window, and what will be on the other side of that window will be Africa and the Mediterranean looking back at me. There will be African faces, Sardinian faces, right? All around the nest of lilacs and the crown of willow, and the Native American faces of my ancestors through that window of time. And what is time? Past, future, present, all of it, now, living it, being it, authentic to it. Some people, in their authenticity, in this time of authenticity, particularly to ancestry, celebrate the fact that they're 5% Native American, or 10% African American, or 3% Irish. By golly, Dana, I got my test back and I'm 3% Irish. And when I'm in Ireland, I'm going to live up that 3%. I think that's magnificent, because it's not about blood quantum. It's not about blood quantum. It's about who and what's in your blood. And just because maybe it's a little bit watered down does not mean that your Irish relatives are not sitting at the table. Go feast with them in Ireland. All of our relatives, all of our ancestors are sitting around a great big, I always envision like a Viking hall, with all of our ancestors each taking a seat all the way back in time. And just because the blood quantum says you're 20% African Bantu out of the Congo does not mean that the other 80% are more important. They're all still sitting in that great big hall table, that Viking hall, right? And the 6% of me, that Scandinavian Viking, I love that. I want to see the 6%, right? I mean, the matter of the fact is, if we do our blood quantum, when we go way, 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 way back, in the present time, a lot of it is watered down. But when people criticize somebody for celebrating their 5% Irish, dang, I think that's awful. Or the stories of the ancestors who perhaps just don't show up in your bloodline, but you know they're there, you've been told, you know they're there. Celebrate that. Be authentic to that. Who cares if it's 20% or 5% or 80%? Go there and celebrate that. And let other people's opinions be their opinions of that. Be authentic to your ancestry if that is where your passion lies. Get that lederhosen. Wear that kilt, right? Do all of that. A friend of mine the other day who's like 80% Norwegian found out the other 20% is Polynesian. I said, wonderful, Barbie. Go out there and get that hula lesson, right? Explore that. Be passionate about that. But Dee, look at me. I'm 5'10" and I'm a blue-eyed blonde. I said, who cares? Your relatives will be out there celebrating with you. Be authentic to that. Be courageous. Be bold. Be bold. The ancestors celebrate with us when we are being courageously authentic to our music, to our writing, to the passions of our heart, to our art, to whatever it is that our soul brings us to in a good way. Our ancestors celebrate with us. And don't think for a minute that any one of our ancestors sitting in that Viking hall around that table are less important than any of the others. They're all important. They're all unique. We're all important and we are all unique. Each and every one of those ancestors in my Viking hall helped to give me a gift, a blessing. There are burdens, of course, in that Viking hall that some of us wear, but there are blessings. Every time we shine our blessings, our talents, our passions in this lifetime, sometimes we are healing those that weren't allowed to display their talents or their passions, that weren't allowed to shine their light in their authentic way. Many were punished. Being authentic means that we also allow our ancestors to be authentic through us, with us, to be joyful with us. I can't wait for the time that I actually get to the Van Gogh Museum in the Netherlands. Oh, I can't wait. I've already been studying about it. I've already looked at the interior of it. I will get there and I will celebrate. And I will be. Heck, the other day Todd and I were in Holland, Michigan, which is vastly different from what I understand than Holland, the Holland. But what the heck, even Holland, Michigan has evolved in the 30 years, right? Woof. And yet you can still get a pair of wooden shoes made in Holland, Michigan. I figure I'll get my wooden shoes while I'm in the Netherlands. Oh, goodness. What's Rob say? Where the dark morn sweeps down the sea. You know, one of my favorite places in Ireland is the Cliffs of Moher. The Cliffs of Moher. And when I was there a few years back, I remember I had to tear myself away from the Cliffs of Moher. And recently, in my Ancestry.com, learning that two of my great-grandparents came from that region of Ireland. And so I have the feeling now, looking back, that I wasn't the only one enjoying the view and the smell of the ocean. Oh my goodness. I wasn't the only one enjoying the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland. I was there with all of my ancestors who were breathing the salt air through me and with me and listening to the sound of the puffins, the sound of the ocean along the cliffs. My passion is the passion of my ancestors. I am their passion. I am the result, literally, of their passion. Think about that. All of us are the results of their determination and their passion. And how magnificent is that? Being authentic takes courage. It means loving yourself. It means valuing yourself and valuing those who love you in your authenticity. Love those people, those 20%. The 20% who are never going to love you no matter what you do, no matter how you try to please them. Let that 20% go to the periphery of your life. The other 60% that really don't care about, what you're doing, what you got going on, remember that 60% of the people in your life really don't care. And then there's the 20% that love you no matter what. Like my friend Tara, who just stepped in to my office. She and I are going to spend some time together today. With that, everybody, get out there and shine. Do what it is that you are called to do. Be authentic to that. Be brave. Be courageous. Just be you. With that, everybody, have a beautiful day.